you know. Anyways, fellas, how y'all doing? Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Feeling good.
Yes.
Bless, man.
Thankful.
Yeah, it's a lot of things to discuss, man. Um, this weekend was fun. I know it's Thursday now, so we're getting ready for the next weekend. But I just want to. I know Alex was talking about how LA was. It was lovely,
Oh
man.
yeah, that's
It was
right.
really just
You was out in LA. What's up?
yeah. Got to connect with a lot of conversations with my father. You know what I'm saying? It's a long drive. You know, we want to go drop off my sister, so that was like really the highlight of the trip. Just chopping it up with him. And it's interesting. There's like this parallel. So, you know, I do work with youth, and we've been studying about the native people, the Ohlone people. So, we'll be having conversations with this lady that's part of the Ohlone tribe, and that's like her roots. And interesting enough, I started asking my father about our origin and our roots of our people from El Salvador and the indigenous side of it, which we weren't taught much growing up, you know? And it's just lately that's kind of been a theme in my life. Like, I want to know about the stories I was not told, and that includes combos with pops, conversations with educators about things we should be teaching our youth. Because a lot of times when we hear about history, we hear about these guys that came on a boat, took over the land from hunters and gatherers, and we don't hear much about the richness and the history of these hunters and gatherers, which is in this case in San Francisco, the Ohlone people. So anyways, I say all that to say this is that LA was fun, and it was just I needed that time with my family, and it kind of grounded me. So that's keeping me going. You feel me? I'm fueled up, and yeah, man. How y'all been?
Alex, I'll take after you.
For sure. I know any day you see me, it's the best day of my life. I always like to quote, there's only 2 days where you can't, 2 days in a year where you can't do anything. It's yesterday and tomorrow. Um, and so if you see me, it's better than the last one. Um, I'm always aware of the dichotomy of heavy and light things, that weigh on my spirit, things that make me float, things that press me down. Um, but all in all, I can always say that, life is good. Um, Happy to wake up. Waking up is probably my favorite thing in the world. It's nothing like it. It allows for everything else to happen. Um, and it's probably like the most flattering thing that ever happens to me from in 24 hours is, something that I'm not in control of, waking up.
Mm.
Uh, yeah. So it's great
God is good
all the time.
all the time.
God is good.
Notice,
Seeing what's
man.
up with
City
you.
yo.
Like Alex come in with like the most like poetic, thoughtful, most composed way of putting things. And of course, to be the guy with the mask with the goatee and the heart on his head, named Cineo, to then be like, yeah, but bruh. But nah, it's all seriously, it's like the other me, right? The me that's not in the mask, right? Like the mask me, great. I'm cool. I'm doing my thing. Like y'all can check me out on social media. If you check on my Instagram right now, I'm posting, or Twitter, or any platform you can find me, right? Sineo, Sineo, right? Sineo. The thing is, what I'm doing right now is I'm putting out these little videos that are snapshots of my music with like accompanying visual, right? And so that part is great. Now, to me, outside of that, there's work that I do that's the other me, the community me, right? The one that gets to blend in with the crowd. And I will say that I'm stepping up a lot more at work because I am activated and elevated. Like this, like I was just telling somebody, a former colleague of mine, who's a dear friend now, that there's before George Floyd and there's after George Floyd. Like, you know what I'm saying? Everybody has their personal, like, pivotal moment, right? Like, I always highlight, when it comes to time, that's defined by the life of Jesus, right? Like, there's AD, there's BC. That's it, right? Here we are in a 2020, which is the measurement from that point, right? So for me, I'm like, on a personal level, George Floyd has now become that point of significance in my lifetime where I know there was me before and now there's me after. And so, you know, I'm practicing on getting to the level Alex is at, but I'm at the point where I'm like, yo, y'all gonna catch this heat. Y'all gonna catch this heat. Like, I work within a community, or more so a workforce organization, right? They're not community based, but they work within the community. And I come from the community. So I'm going to show up as the community and I'm going to speak on behalf of the community because I know now more than ever, like my feelings have been the same prior and after. But the difference is I know that the community's ready for my feelings, right? Before I had these sentiments and I was holding on to them, but I was like, okay, is this the time and the place, right? I got to be mindful, time and place. Now is the time. Now is the place. Because prior it was like, oh, we ain't activated. We ain't there yet. Oh, now you can't turn away from it. We all got to take it in. We want absolute change. Well, guess what? I've been meditating on this for a minute. I'm more than happy to apply myself. So, that is how I'm doing. That's where I'm at. So, that's what it is.
That's a lively place to be, though. That's a lively place to be. Um, I also just very much appreciate being activated um, when it comes to. I've been preparing for this moment. Uh, I went through that. I went through that feeling a little bit with this fourth day in July, where it's like, man, I never seen so many people like disapprove of America. Like I've been feeling this whole time. It's like I've been waiting for y'all to just not celebrate it with me. And so like that was like really cool, like where it was trending for America to be less than, where nationalism was not as strong. Because it's not really about being patriotic or not patriotic. Patriotic is a term that's umbrella term that's tossed out there. Like I'm a patriot just by doing what I'm doing right now. We are patriots in this moment, and like never forget that. Whenever you create,
you said the word trendy, man, and that's I think the thing with this whole internet digital age we live in. It's like we're living this daily, and it seems like for a period of time something comes up and suddenly everyone has an opinion on it and slowly starts drifting, because I feel like the powers that be, they control the narrative a lot of times if we allow them to. Obviously, we're aware and we're conscious enough to know that, okay, just because it's not on my timeline doesn't mean it has stopped. And which still continues on mine, but I think that's also revolving around the folks that you subscribe to. But yeah, that's just something that comes to mind a lot of times. I'm like, yo, why is it until shit's trending that now people want to talk about it? And I get a little frustrated. I just gotta say that, man. And then again, I get a lot of. Sorry, I'm going off right now. It's episode 7. I want to say some things, man. I really miss being in community, like being in front of y'all, having these conversations, man. Cause I ain't one of these rappers that hide behind the camera and type away, man. No Twitter fingers here only, okay, man. We could pull up, we could have these conversations in flesh, man. I miss doing shows, you know what I'm saying? And that's the space I'm in right now. So I'm carrying all that, and yeah, man, I don't know. I know I'm all over the place. I think I came in all over the place from the beginning when you asked me about LA, and I suddenly started talking about the Ohlone people. But that's just my brain at this moment. That's it.
It's all connected.
Huh? It is, right?
All connected. Like, I mean, it brings me to this point that we wanted to touch on, which is how are you finding wellness in the time of Zoom, in the age of Zoom? How does everyone find their wellness? Like, we said it today. We all been on Zoom before this. We all was on. I was on for a hot minute, facilitating and running communication and circles and blah 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 blah. But what is
that itself feels like that last part, that blah blah blah. I literally have been describing this with my friend. She'd be like, "Oh, how was your day?" I'd be like, "Blah blah blah blah." Like that's literally how I've been describing it. So I felt that, man. Um, I don't want to hog the mic, but I will share this. It's been autopilot a lot of times for me. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I want to be like Marshawn Lynch and just be, I'm just here so I won't get fined. I just gotta be honest. I have days like that, and I just want to turn the camera off, and I just, hope they don't watch this episode. But if they do, that's how I feel. This is a safe space.
Not
Yeah, man.
trying to like. It's not that you don't have appreciation for your job. It's just that
Oh, I love my job.
this is a really
Yeah,
difficult time to do our jobs.
it is. And it may seem like first world problems. That's something I discuss with some of my coworkers. Like, I hate to be the guy complaining, like, "Oh, poor me, I'm here having to just keep talking," but it do get draining sometimes. You know what I'm saying? But then this is our passion at the same time. So it's like, how do you balance your passion and your love for this, and also, I guess, the mental health part of like, what am I doing? Am I taking enough walks? Am I eating properly? Am I exercising? This plays a huge role, and I understand that because I start feeling kind of funky sometimes when I don't include these things in my daily life. In my meditating, in my praying, whatever you subscribe to, in my reading. All these things play a huge role in how I'm feeling at the end of the day. And yeah, man. So there's a lot of that. Episode 7. Y'all thought I was playing, man. This therapy for me today. All right. That's how
Okay,
I'm coming in.
like who who is it that you turn to make sure that you finding that balance that you actually are doing those things? Like, is this a isolated thing that you're doing on your own, or are you
Mm,
people to work with you to make sure that y'all hold each other accountable? Like, does that happen?
not enough, but yes, there is. This right here is community. These are folks that you guys are people. Obviously, I call not just when we're recording, and yeah, and seeing you guys, I got to see Alex like a little social distance, whatever art thing we did. But yeah, those are moments in which I find like, okay, clarity, and I can open up. And, prayer, man, meditating. I don't do enough of it, but that's that brings a lot of peace at the end of the day. Just to be able to go to sleep, and kind of what Alex said. Thank you for each day I'm alive. That's the best part, and I want to carry that too, man. I don't think I do that enough, to be honest with you. Like, to wake up with that. Thank you. Sometimes I'm on autopilot. Where's the coffee? That's just me.
What I figured out was that in my lifetime I had reached a quota for bad days.
Mm.
And so I tried having more bad days and I can't. It's one of the best things that I
That just
discovered.
hit me, by the way. I was kind of late right now. That just hit me big
Yeah,
time.
bang, bang.
Landed.
Yeah, like I can't have bad days. It's really really nice. Uh, it's not that I'm pain free, right? I'm not stress
Mm-hmm.
free. But the way that I engage with stress is
Mm-hmm.
different than most people, um, because of my background in movement. I understand that the body learns through movement, the brain learns through movement, and talking for a long time, right? You can get tired. Looking at the screen for a long time, you can get tired. Um, Exercising for a long time, running for a long time, there's fatigue that sets in, and you can train your body to recover and then repeat. And if we don't take that time to recover, take it enough substantial amount of time to recover, then you're gonna diminish your capacity to do the thing you do well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so for me, I think that's how I engage with stress. It's like, okay, I know the stress can be good for me, um, if I engage in it in a positive way, to where I see myself, um, getting better in some sense. And so, like, if I'm looking for the improvement that comes from the stress, uh, then I'm running at it like a brick wall. And sometimes the brick wall takes, some of you. Sometimes you take a piece of the brick wall, right? Sometimes it's like flesh and blood and bone on the brick wall. But if you keep running at it, you'll break through. That's why they call it a breakthrough. Um,
Ooh,
and like
bars.
for me, it's like it's really important to say these are the things that are on my list that rejuvenate me, that bring me back, that ground me, whether they are people, they are events, they are moments like a sunset, they are
Mm,
environments or atmospheres, their interactions. It's whether it's giving or receiving, it's whether it's training, practicing, playing Smash Brothers, on that competitive level. Shout out to my streamers out there. Um, like it's really important that I have this list of things. Say, okay, these are the things that make me me.
mm.
How many of these are included in my week? These are the things
You
that
write this
that
down?
I
You write these
enjoy.
thing down? You write it all down?
I'm
Are you
writing
one
it
of the?
down as I
Oh, it's right
talk to
there.
you.
You got a library in your brain right now.
This this is me writing it down as I speak.
But do y'all do the daily task? Like I'm gonna knock this out today. Bam, bam, bam. No,
Um,
I don't know.
it was in my calendar,
Okay, well yeah, but you don't. How
right?
about the act of physically writing like on a notebook? Like
I got a notebook. It's not in this
I'm just
space.
dropping subliminal. Oh, okay.
No, no.
But no, I'm
Yeah,
saying,
it's not in this
is it
space,
helpful
but
to write it down?
well, that's the question. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it helpful to write it down? It adds muscle memory to the message.
Yeah.
Um, and so for some people, it may make things more difficult actually, depending on how they process information. It may stagnate them to try to write down, what they're what they're thinking. For some people, it's better
Are
to
y'all visual learners?
record. I am a learner from every direction.
I think
Um,
I'm a visual learner. Oh, I gotta
uh,
do it. I gotta actually do it. I gotta like mess with the keyboard and you know what I mean?
it's whatever you call doing it is though.
Dang man, why are you so philosophical?
Um, it's this
Like I'm
kente
like
cloth, man. It's this kente cloth.
Exercise into a
It's
meditative state every day. That's what happens. The boy. See, this is the thing that's so transformative that people don't really like finding
I feel
balance.
like you talk to me in parables. My bad.
No, I'm just saying finding balance and finding purpose. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've had somewhat of the ability to kind of see before and after, right? So like
Mm.
we all the known the journey is kind of similar, right? We go to school and we go through the process of self-discovery through all these different events and people and entanglements. The thing is, okay, relationships. The thing is, all these different
I
relationships.
thought we wasn't sensationalists.
I didn't
Let's
say,
go there, man.
I just
Let's go there.
I just said
No.
a
All
word.
right.
It was
Hold
time.
on.
It was trendy. You know,
My mom's
this is
calling me.
episode 7, and we're talking about wellness. Right? Well, but the thing is that like in this scope, right? Like going to school with Alex, and then now seeing him as an adult, right? There's a transformation that has occurred where he's found purpose through the things that he does, and now he's in a state where he can appreciate the now because he's been in practice for so long that now it's become a part of his whole, right? So when you ask him,
Mm.
has he written it down, like maybe at one point he did, or and maybe at one point he needed to have it somewhere that was a outside of himself, right? But now it's manifested itself in so many different ways that it is now part of the routine of happiness, right? We
In
seldom think
nature.
about our routine being happiness, that then they become these two exclusive things. I'm happy when I'm off work instead of I find happiness in my work, right? I've made my work the point of being happy, right? There's sacrifices we all have to make, but the things that he's talking about, like he's talking about breakthroughs. Most people, like, they break at the idea of even having to put in the effort to start that process, right? That means I got to get
Ooh.
up and run to then hit a brick wall. Sometimes the brick wall will win Matter of fact, the brick wall will win more than I win. But that's the thing, right? There's so much thoughtfulness in like saying how I look at this wall, the need to go through it is now changing my attitude towards everything in relation to that wall. I no longer see it as a problem. I see it as my duty for myself to get through it. I see it as an accomplishment and achievement to know that eventually I will, as long as I put forth the effort to do so. So, like, when I'm hearing, because we living in the age of Zoom, right? We are now in a new age of discovery of what work looks like and how we do the work that we do. So for me, it's like when I see what Alex is saying, I mean, yeah, I might have my little jokes and quips and little pieces about it, but in reality, I'm realizing, okay, you know what? I need to focus that much more on the things that bring me balance and that bring me peace and bring me joy. Because if I don't, then yeah, it's easy to get consumed and lost. And yeah, like it's helpful to write it down. Like I've spent so many times writing it down. Like there was an exercise I did at one of my jobs where we had to write down the things that are of importance to us, and then we need to see how much and how often do we engage with it during the week. And I realized it wasn't balanced enough. So I had to then put forth that effort to make sure now it's balanced, right? And so if I don't sometimes look at it outside of myself and put it down on a piece of paper, or if I don't map it out, like I got tons of notes to help me reframe and to keep things together because I have so much as a creative person that goes all over the place. So it's good to organize your thoughts outside of yourself so that way you can access them in different ways. Because sometimes we get lost, right? So I think that
Yeah.
there's a method to everything. It's just finding the method that works for you, right? Like you talking about what type of learner are you? You're whatever learner you challenge yourself to be at the end of the day, right? Like I hate to take it from wellness, but like I said, it's a new age we living in. So I gotta call it out for what it is. Self-limiting beliefs are a part of white supremacy, right? Like when you have a self-limiting belief, what is that? That's you saying, yeah, I don't know, or I can't, I don't think I can, or, maybe it's not going to work out. Like you're starting to put all these doubts and you're starting to put limits on yourself. No one put them on you. You are self-projecting. You are putting them on you, right? Like it becomes this self-defeating prophecy. You put self-defeating energy by saying you have limits, right? Like right now, maybe you learn visually, or maybe
You
you
know what?
but
I know I can be what I want to be.
exactly. Come on now,
If I work hard at it, I'll be where I want to be.
And right, and that's the type of uh accessor I am to information at times. Same way Nas had a book of rhymes, right? I also keep notes, right? But those notes, I don't carry them everywhere, right? I take what I need in the moment, right? And some of it becomes part of my identity, right? Like my name, right? So I come out the house knowing who I am and what I'm going to do and how I'm going to operate, right? I know that because it's what I've grasped onto as who I am and my standards, my integrity, how I want to show up. And there are certain things that I'm going to adhere to when I step out the house. And then I have these notes where I can say, well, how well did I do at that? Do I need to add anything else? I have tons of stuff written down. Like I got math notes from, 20 years ago. It's nice to say 20 years ago. I'm
That's
not even
crazy,
mad
man.
at it.
That's wild.
It's I don't know, it's a lovely thing, man. It's like
No, it's
when you
beautiful.
talk about where, yeah, like when you talk about where you wasn't supposed to be, or like where the system didn't want you to show up at,
We
a
wasn't
party
supposed
they
to make
didn't
it
want you
past
to be at,
25.
right? That thing. Um, and I know so many people, right, who didn't make it that far. Um, but at the same time, I'm bringing their memory with us, right? Um, and the experiences that I had with those people that are, that have transitioned on, come with me also, as I, am intentional about my own, breakthroughs, right?
It's
It's like,
huge.
okay, yeah, like I want to I want to see the next year, right? So how do I operate to make that happen, right? I want to see also my little cousins, make it to the next year, right? And better than we started out this year, right? So same thing on the other side of this pandemic. Again, what does it look like for me, right? How do I visualize that, right? Do I draw it, right? Do I illustrate, right? Do I write it out, right? Is it lyrics, right? Is it metaphors? Is it similes, right? Is it limerick? Like whatever it is, I'm creating literally my world that I want to then step into. And when you talk about, right, you talk about white supremacy, it's really like this blanketed term right now, but really they just happened to be the people that was colonizing a large, majority of the planet, and they had a look to them. But really, that's what anybody that's trying to take over somewhere, right, is trying to do. It's the way to colonize people, is to get them to think that what your way is better than theirs, because they've obviously been living their way for a long time. And as you introduce yourself, you say, I'm worth listening to for this reason. And that takes also then diminishing whatever they were doing. And so then that thought process of, wait, I'm not doing this right. I can't do this, right? Well, I've been living this way. Nah. What you're doing is wrong. That way of thinking of, compartmentalizing yourself and your capacity to do or to be, you know, goes back generations. And it's something that we have to, again, right, always fight through. And I think it's really the reason why artists are so important right now, is because artists are the ones thinking, the ones that are creating. Even if they don't get it on paper, they still have to fight through that process and get it out their system. And whatever way that looks like, whether it's in a beat, um, producing a track, right? It's color, right? It's sound, right? It's visual, like whatever it is, get it out your system, because there's more coming in, because that's the way your brain works. And if you're in a space where you're not, like if you're in a space, you live a life where you're putting out more than you're taking in, then you're doing a service to everyone else. And we need more of that, instead of people just receiving information, a lot of times, which is misinformation, being fed things instead of feeding themselves and feeding others. And I think that's what the other Cineo, without the mask, is about, like that aspect of giving his time, energy, in a way that other people, he sets an example for other people, right? He creates the opportunity for a cycle where others can then give. But if you don't give, that's the thing, like if we don't allow a platform or an arena for people to give, then all they're going to know how to do is take.
Yeah, it's real. We got, okay. Hey, did y'all grow up watching Nickelodeon?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to have a television, and I was lucky enough to have cable. And yes, I was lucky enough to watch Nickelodeon on hours.
You're not
Word.
I'm too smart for that. I'm like,
We're not gonna talk about what?
yeah, move.
Oh, you see it? Yeah, shadow boxing.
I'm getting out the way your subliminals.
Oh, well, my real subliminal was The Notebook.
Okay,
if y'all really read it.
Dreams, yeah, like Taina, like
that. I haven't written notes in a long time, or even scheduled anything. To be honest with you, it's all in my calendar as well. So I just wanted to say that, because I feel like You know, I didn't want it to come as an attack of like y'all don't write stuff down. You know, it was just the subliminal follow your dream.
Nah, you still did that. You
So
still did that.
right, safe space. One, when I say things like white supremacy, I'm not trying to use terminology that's divisive, right? I'm just saying this is a term that we associate with certain things. And so
Nickelodeon.
I'm not saying you writing things down is you using the kind of hierarchy of bullcrap, right? I'm saying whatever way you got to do it, right? Whatever way that's gonna work for you, get it done, bro. Write it out. All the
Bars.
scraps, because at the end of the day, like
My
I got
book of rhymes, Nas.
like, bro, my book of rhymes be looking like a mini library, but now times have changed. I could put it on my phone, or I could use my head, whatever the case is. But now
Yeah.
it's like, what we're trying to provoke is people to think more critically about how we operate in this age and this new time, because like, I see the other me, right, the one that ain't with the mask, was in a meeting with some people, and I had brought up the term that, like, time now is I associated with racism,
Mm. Expand.
because I don't think anybody was at the table that looked like any of us when it came time to decide what my hour was worth, right? Like, y'all got to decide, someone got to decide what was the standards of an hour worth, right? And then you got to decide that me being tardy to school was needed to be met with a punitive measure or a disciplinary measure, right? And so, we could get into all the subtleties and dynamics, right, of what I'm really trying to say. It sounds like on one end, it's like, why he say that, bro? Like, but why he say that? On the other end, it's like, well, think about it, right? I'm not saying that like everybody is colluding and complicit to this one thing. What I am saying is we are impacted by it. We never question these things. We just go along with it. We just, like, okay, we're here. And it's like, to me,
That's
nah,
crazy, yo.
who was at the table to decide these social norms that we said we gonna apply ourselves to? But with that being said, that's me on Zoom for hours on end talking about this stuff, trying to get people to open their mind. So me finding my balance, right, coming back around to it, because you thought I was gonna deviate. Nah, for me, it is exercising, it is video games, it is making music, it is reading, being mindful, like I said last time, how I talk to people, right? Like how I build with my family and my community, my direct community, because I don't want my feelings to be projected on them. What I want is my concern and my love, right? Like I want to speak from a place of love. And it's hard because, I got my traumas, I've lost my mother, I've lost aunties, I lost family members to health. And, not to mention the violence in the neighborhoods that I've lost friends to. So when I come from a perspective of like maintaining safety and sustainability of positivity, like I have to internalize that and know that not everyone's going to practice what I practice, right? When I go for a run, right, I can invite people, but I can't be mad if they're not going to run as long as me, right? I need to give them space to explore their own health. And I need to echo love first and not be like, so you really going to give up? Oh, so you going to give up? So you quit? All right, what's that? I'm going to just leave you behind.
You run till like you're almost injured, man. Like
I run.
Some people work till they almost injured.
I run in,
man, Mamba mentality. I feel that.
by any.
Some people know, not my nah. Some people give they time to their job till they
Oh, I
almost
see what you
injured.
did there. Yeah.
Some people
But then
love till they almost
and you
injured.
and you shoot your free throw with a broken Achilles.
Some people love till they almost injured. Right? Some people care till they almost injured.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So
I'm getting emotional, man. Yeah.
how do you care about yourself, right? To the same extent that you care about your job, right? How are you intentional with yourself the same way you're intentional about your job? Like what does it look like to be that focused where no one has to wake you up and say, I'm gonna take care of me, right? The same way nobody's got to wake you up to go make the money that somebody decided again, that don't look like you. When you talk about, right, Cinio's one representation class 101, right? It's like, who's deciding what your hour is worth? And that's pretty much how I became an entrepreneur in the first place. I was like, this is not this is not it. This is not it. This is I look at my time, say, okay, not looking at my rent, not looking at my expenses, looking at my own energy, my own worth, my own expertise, my own education, and saying, is this worth it? And then saying, why am I working in the first place? Why do I want to? And it came down to the first day I trained anyone. I trained my mother, and it was like, I just want to help friends and family. And then I expanded my view of what friends and family was. Um, and that didn't expand until I got more connected with my relationship with God, and that spirituality, that understanding, like how we're all connected. I love when Lex Luthor like gets Superman powers for just a moment, and as he's losing his powers, he's like, "Dang, all it is us as atoms here connected." And
Wow.
And when you see that we're all connected, then you want to do things, you want to operate differently, because you see the next person as you see your family. You see the good and the bad in people, and you see that they're capable of more. And Superman was like, "Man, why'd you do this to me? I could have saved this." And Superman was like, "Lex, if you wanted to save us, you could have done that anytime you wanted to, because you that smart." And when we waste our time like jumping through loopholes and running the rat race, like, we miss out on the genius that we have and the opportunity to help each other.
Word. On top of getting entangled.
For sure. On top of getting entangled.
Without going too deep into that word, right? Uh, I think it's something to be said about like the conversation around wellness in the age of Zoom, right? And like, yeah, mindful of like, how do we not get trapped by our limitations, but really achieve our own personal glory and appreciate that, uplift that, like, because it is a thing where we kind of we can lose sight of our like identity by being part of the greater whole, like the bigger whole, like, like as much as we activated by the tragedy that's happened, we also have to be uplifted by how much beauty and how much joy it is in our identity, right? Like, yes, there's pain, but there's also a lot of joy. And I think that we got to highlight that as well, right? Like, it makes me think of like kind of the different interactions you have with different levels of authority, and then how that may
Mhm.
play out depending on where you at, right? Like, it's hyper, like, I think of Killer Mike and how Killer Mike talks about his upbringing, right? And him not feeling like a minority. Like, he never
Mhm.
felt like a minority. He went to an all black school. He was in an all black community. He had black people was the focal point, right? It wasn't the afterthought. And so for me growing up in San Francisco, like, we definitely grew up in a diverse community. Cause I mean, I remember going to like elementary school, and like the number of white kids at the school was a minority. Like, even at my high school, the number of white kids was a minority. And, it's like, I got to really appreciate the fact that I got to witness this really crazy dynamic that doesn't exist across the United States, right? Because it's like, we look at the numbers and we kind of just see, oh, you're a small number, right? Like, being Latino in contrast to being Caucasian, right? Or, the global like kind of populace, like, you get lost in it, right? Like, you just be like, oh, well, this, we ain't got nobody. But then you go somewhere else, you be like, oh, it ain't nothing but us. Ain't nothing but this, right? Like, I think that there's something to be said about like, how do you find the joy in being who you are, and that identity being connected to something bigger than yourself?
I think finding the joy um, comes from self-examination, um, getting to know yourself better, um, like really knowing kind of what makes you tick, and being honest about the things that you like, that you rock with outside of external opinions, because people will censor, their preferences, uh, and just to follow along, just to fit in, and to feel belonging instead of belonging, instead of feeling like they belong in themselves. Um, it's really wild because I felt I didn't feel like a minority at home. Um, I had siblings. I had three siblings, and I didn't feel. I felt like I was one of them. I think that helps a lot. Like everybody doesn't get that, and like you said, like growing up in the city, in my everyday 8-hour grind as a student, in the school district, I didn't feel like a minority. Um, I wasn't looking to appear um, like I was part of the group. I felt a part of the group. I operated every day, you know, as a part of the group. But I chose still to be my own person. I chose to step away from the group and do different things, be in corners, and not be pushed into something because I was looking to be with this group of people or be with these kids or whatever. Uh, it was always important for me to do to be the person that I felt like I was at home.
Mm.
Uh, and when there's so much stuff going on at home, it's hard to do that because you got the first authority figure is the guardian. Um, everybody don't have their parent at home. Uh, sometimes you got a guardian. Sometimes grandma. Sometimes auntie. Sometimes you adopted. Sometimes it's your older cousin. Sometimes your older sibling. Who's your guardian, and how you respond to the stress of that interaction, because every relationship has conflict, right? Abrasiveness, and your rough edges that you are as a person um, can sometimes trigger other people. And so we always say, well, this person's bad or this person's toxic. uh, that may be the case. Sometimes they just learn how to handle things the wrong way, or in an unhealthy way, or they just learned how to handle it to where their focus is on self-preservation, you know. And even if that's the case, you know, finding the best way to say I'm uncomfortable is very hard throughout this life. Uh, the phrase I'm uncomfortable, because we would rather say we're comfortable to keep other people comfortable, to diminish, to de-escalate, and deny ourselves the space to feel uncomfortable, deny ourselves the space to say that this situation is not right for me. And that can start, very, very early. That can start as an infant, um, which is really sad and scary, where, you know, in your developing years, you could, be stagnant from growth just because uh, your guardian, whoever the authority figures in your space, won't let you say that you're uncomfortable. And I think we're seeing a bigger version of that um, in America right now, and around the world, where people have not felt comfortable saying they were uncomfortable. They have not been, in a space with it to say they're uncomfortable, and they come across authority figures like the officers in certain communities where over policing happens and you're not allowed to say, hey, I don't like you being here. Um, I don't like the way you're talking to me. I don't like the way you treating me. And, we get into a place where we're like later for that. It's been too long, but it's this healing that's happening as people say they're uncomfortable across the board and are hearing each other. Not everyone is listening. But we call it backlash. What really is just somebody saying, I'm uncomfortable with the way you express yourself. And yeah, you got the right to feel that. You ain't got to chop me down for doing it though. You ain't got to paint over these letters. You ain't got to, right? You ain't got to break into my house. You ain't got to come into my house and shoot me. Like, yeah, you got a right to be uncomfortable with who I am. But you ain't got the right to stop me from being who I am by ending my life or taking away my freedom or taking away any of my liberties or my ability to be. You don't got the right to do that. And like we're in a space now where like people like we're trying to get through trauma, whereas an infant country, it's not been okay as a citizen to say that you uncomfortable, and everybody has to fight for that except the people that's been making the rules. But everybody else has to fight for that. And that's what all this activism is about, is advocating for people who are unheard when they say that they're uncomfortable or feel like they can't say that what they're going through is hurting them. But you even from there, like that's the joy that I see in the world right now. Is everybody's like, oh, damn, that straight jacket hurt. Damn, them chains, them restrictions hurt. Damn, it's been too long that I've been quiet. Oh, it feels nice to speak. Oh, dang, it feels nice to scream with somebody. Oh, it feels nice to scream by myself. It feels nice to write this on a piece of cardboard and not get shot for putting it up there. It's nice to have backup. It's nice to say, oh, damn, it's more people at this meeting this week. Damn, it's nice to say, oh, we might get something done. Oh, they might actually send somebody else to check on these homeless people. Oh, they might actually send somebody else who got mental illness. They might actually send somebody else just to tell me that I ran this red light. That'll be okay. It's nice to see, oh, feels kind of good to see something changing.
It's gonna feel real good right now. Watch this.
Oh, feels good to have backup. Judy B in the building. Is that a fork in her hand? Straight to the food. Talk about things that make us feel good. She got that fork in her hand. I'm jealous. She on mute.
You muted.
Okay, she with the squad.
She muted right now. I get it. I feel it. But guess what? You with us now. So, we talking about, just to bring June into the conversation as we do. This is kind of how we are. We talking about how do you find joy within your identity, and that identity being connected to a greater, bigger whole, right? Like whether that means finding joy in being Black, finding joy in being a woman, finding joy in the intersectionality of it all. But where do you find the joy in it, right? Like, Alex touched on finding joy and rejoicing in the fact that we're together in our sentiments, in our expression, and saying that, like, we're uncomfortable and being okay to feel, like, to let that be, to be the reality that we in right now. Like, it's okay to say I'm uncomfortable. Like, we for so long have tried to like adjust and conform to these standards that honestly, like, they don't define us, right? We just fell into a role, and we're like, okay, so because everybody else is driving in the lanes, we got to drive in the lanes. Instead of saying, I'm gonna go pave my own road, I'm gonna pave something better. Like, I'm gonna make something new, right? And I think that
Standard should be to raise the standard. That is the standard. You mean to tell me I have my own identity? You mean to tell me that there's a collection of not others, but of the same? Oh my goodness, that I can connect to and the things that I value? And there are so many levels, and there's so many, there's levels to this. Needless to say, that's where one may find their joy. In fact, that is where I find my joy. A joy that I can find, knowing that I am just as individual as I am continuous is individuality. So even though I express myself, we are as a collective expressing ourselves in the ways that we so choose. And take lyrical ones, for example, and thus we create something wonderful. So I'm very happy and thankful and grateful to see all of the collectives that are being created, whether if it is on social justice, whether if it is on a pigment quality, melanin, um, whether if it is in any ways, in as many ways, we can all become closer together. I think that's what's most important, because I feel like united we rise, divided we fall.
I'm with it. I'm with it. It's about how we find that joy. Fego, how you finding that joy? I mean, you kind of touched that on the beginning of the conversation by, like, being able to spend time on the road and figure out what is the history of you, your people, my people, right? Like, what is it for you, right? What is the joy, and how do you find it? How does it show up?
Yeah, man. I mean, back to the fundamentals, family, and learning about like your roots, your foundation, what it took for us to get here. Like I'm always having to like be humbled and constantly reminded, like it took like a lot of generations for me to get here. I know it's kind of crazy, and like in our case, like, in Cineo, you could relate as far as like a civil war in this small country named El Salvador in Central America took place. And my father escaped this war, and came to San Francisco and where he met my mother. But I think everything that took put like in, think about it, this is the Reagan era. So Ronald Reagan, we know about the crack epidemic in the 80s, and the trade that was going on as far as weapons were being sold. And this is all on files now, so I don't have to be worried about they coming for me. Y'all put out the information out already. Don't kill the messenger. But we understand that there's, the government was involved in a trading with these countries and was sponsoring wars. So the country in which I was born sponsored a war that my father fled for me to, be here. So if it wasn't for a war that this country, was donating and funding, I probably wouldn't be here. So it's kind of like this really, I'm torn sometimes. And then to get deeper into it, my father's side, my father fought against the government in El Salvador. And then I got my mother's side, which works for the government and was part of the government, military. So I carry these two, real deep and kind of like messy, just like all of us, history. And and then I look at my grandfather and I look at pictures of him. This man looked like, you could tell he's indigenous, man. Like people try to talk to him in English, speak to him in English when he was here, and he was like, huh? Like they thought he was a black man. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a trip. This is my grandfather, and then my mother's side, it looked like straight up European, blue eyes, green eyes, and the whole 9 yards. So it's like I am aware of what I carry. You know what I mean? Like I have both sides. And yeah, and I'm constantly like just kind of exploring that, and yeah, so I guess I'm finding joy in learning about that. That's what I'm trying to get at. Learning about that, learning about the Ohlone people, because a lot of times we, yeah, we Frisco natives, Mission District, boom. But you think about the mission, man. Why is it called the mission? These missionaries were out here. You know what I'm saying? And these guys were from, like if you really want to get down to real Frisco native, bruh, the Ohlone people were the first. You know what I'm saying? Like the indigenous people here, and then through that time we had many groups come and I want to get down to the nitty gritty, man, to really understand what it took for me to be here. I think that gives me joy learning. So yeah, man, that's kind of where I'm at with that. And it's actually nice to talk about it because sometimes we're processing all this information in our heads and you don't know how to even articulate yourself. Sometimes you're like, oh shit, like my pops, my mom, and they came together and met at a bus stop in the mission, and I'm like, I love the mission, and here I am. So yeah, I'm constantly reminded of that. And then, I think about conversations with my sister, that brings me back to the source, to the real core of who I am. Cause she'll call me out. I'm not just Fego rapper dude. Like, it's like, she could call me out on many things. And so going back to family, going back to people that, seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And yeah, that's where I find joy. I find peace. And, try to chop it up with the creator, you know what I'm saying? Because you can't forget that, even though for me, it's been an evolution even within that, within my spirituality, within my understanding of what was almost like presented to me from the gate. I was forced to go to church. Why was I forced to go to church, man? Like, we got to talk about these things. And these are very uncomfortable conversations sometimes with folks of faith. They don't want to talk about and it goes back to colonization. These people were forced so they perverted what was meant to be, the pureness and the love that was meant to be. They perverted it by forcing people to do, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I'm constantly now beginning to, like, my eyes are opening and viewing things differently. Because, Cineo, I used to be very like, no, this is it and this is it. And I ain't looking, nope, you can't tell me left, and now I'm having to just fall back. Okay, like, really look at every angle. Let me hear what he's saying, because I don't got all the answers. You know what I mean? So if I don't hear what he has to say, his entire experience and opinion, how am I supposed to learn? You know what I mean? Because I'm just viewing things from my lens. So I'm finding joy in hearing other people's experiences, asking more questions, and listening. So yeah, man, I know I threw a lot of stuff up there, but that's the space I'm in right now.
No, I feel you. I mean, it's funny you say all that because it reminds me of kind of like that, like the joy of discovery, right? Like the joy of
Exactly.
like, like it all ties around, right? Like the discovery of I'm not alone, right? The discovery of the appreciation for a new day, right? The discovery of my roots and the complicated and the ickiness of it all, right? Like it's so many layers to it, but to have that joy to know that I'm still unraveling, that I'm still unlocking, like, for me, I agree. Like there's a joy involved in for me right now, it's the joy of being progressive and provoking a change of thought, right? Provoking what the new standards are, because it all comes back around to like knowing where we came from and then seeing how much of it is worth holding on to move and progress things forward, right? Because I think everything's worth learning, but in terms of what's worth practicing is different, right? We can learn in so many different realms, like how they used to rap, right? Like I said, a hip hop, a hippie to the hippie, the hip hip, hobby, you don't stop a rockin'. And it's like that whole buildup is a bunch of scat, right? And everyone's gonna feel differently about that. But to me, it's important to know because I mean, it's a starting point, right? It's historical, right? It's showing a shift, right? It's the same thing with exercise. People used to do the most craziest things when it came to exercise and injure themselves and harm themselves to the point that now we realize, you know what? We shouldn't do that again, right? So now it's it's permeating through everything, right? Like just to call it out, I know this is deep into the conversation of episode 7 of the Lyrical Ones podcast, but just to call it out one more time, when we say the city, we talking about San Francisco. When we say the town, we talking about Oakland. We from the Bay. So I want you to understand that the nomenclature out here, like we have given names to things such as what the mission is and what the mission represents. Like I could go all day about people who come out here to be a part of the mission and don't have any idea what it means to be a part of the mission. And it's like out here, for me, the joy is helping people discover what that means. Because even though I say it with a bit of salt and a bit of grease, I'm gonna give it with some love when I meet you, right? But I gotta let it be known that like where I come from, come on now, like what we really talking about? Like, you ain't really knowing what's up. So let me put you on because I care. Let me put you on because I love this place and I want you to
Because I love it.
I love it. You know what I'm saying? Even when I hate it, I love it, right? Like I get geeked out every time I hear like, man, there's so many vacancies. I'm like, yo, I've been waiting for this. I can't. Well, what? Are you serious? Like, the thing is I have to also address why, right? And I can totally insensitive and lost in my personal perspective. So let me discover what else is there in that conversation to be had. Like, y'all, some of you, it's okay. Like, I get it. You had to leave because there are other things that you love, that you care about, that you hold dear, because you only came out here for an opportunity, right? Just to echo what all of our families did, right? At some point, we got roots in the South. That's whether it's Central America, which is going south, or whether it's slavery in the South, right? I mean, some of us, we're fortunate enough to come out here, and I want to show respect to my African brethren who have their country roots, who know what it means to be patriotic, not just as a statesman or a statesperson, but also what it means to come from the west coast of Africa, right? What it means to come from the east coast of Africa, right? And come from Ethiopia, to come from Senegal, to come from all the Congo, to come from South Africa. That's its own thing. But for us, we got roots in the South, and we don't have that understanding and that grasp, and so we try to figure out where does it all tie into, right? Like, to me, I always think of the kind of duality, right? Like, here we speak English by way of England. Down there, they speak Spanish by way of Spain. We try to make it separate, but reality is literally like twins who were just treated slightly differently to have these slight different outcomes, right? And so, when we hear about a civil war, like this country's been through a civil war, and now we've come to this point in juncture in time where we're able to perpetuate other civil wars in other countries, and how that impacts and how that shows up and how does it unravel. And to me, I find so much joy in exploring those things, to discover the little bits and pieces and how everything connects, everything intertwines. Because to me, it's more so about how we are together and what we connect on, and then appreciating and uplifting the differences, right? Like, we don't do enough to like appreciate those differences, because being uncomfortable is a difference, right? What you see as comfortable can be totally perceived as something uncomfortable to me. And I have to see the joy in both. I have to really be keen on like, how do we explore and discover these things together, so that way we have common ground, we have common space. Because it's like, at the end of the day, for me, it's about peace and love, right? And so I may say some things that may ruffle some feathers, but know that I'm coming from a place of like trying to show love and understanding to create peace for everyone to be able to prosper and enjoy. So, I think it's just one of those things where everybody think about the things that bring you joy and how you show up, right? Like, if anything, we've had these conversations, we continue to have these conversations, and it's not only just for us, but it's for our community. And you listening are a part of our community, whether you listening in Canada or you listening in England. The idea is the same. We're reaching out to you to let you know, one, you're not alone. Like, you got people that are here that are with you. Even though we from the Bay, and the city to us is different than the city to you, know that when we say city, we talking about the lovely San Francisco. And the thing is that where we come from, we have been fortunate enough to have some experiences that hopefully maybe you can take something away from in a positive light. Otherwise, I'm gonna just go off and talk about.
Right on, right on. Go ahead, June.
For those who are listening, I just want to say that I'm in it. And yes, I give a nod to Cineo for being about peace, but I'm here for the expansion of knowledge. So I feel as if the more we connect, the more we can expand and grow as a human race and really push things forward for humanity. And that's where I come from. That's what I do it for.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that, June. And I think it's really important to know the connection between those two things, between knowledge and peace, and how you can't really have peace if people don't know that there's conflict or that there's people that are suffering. Um, it's so important to understand that there's a lot hidden from people, and whether you're a middle class or a lower class, in a socioeconomic makeup, there's things that people are not telling you. There's things that are hidden from you. Um, just like your parents don't tell you what the rent is, um, until you can contribute. It's not that, and it's not always a malicious thing. Sometimes you have to decide what's important to you. So like being ignorant is sometimes a cop out when you have the opportunity to choose what's important to you and choose whose stories are important to you, and say that, hey, what these people are going through matters to me. What's happening in across the ocean, pick ocean, matters to me, because there is knowledge that's out there, but there are people struggling, and we can't lend people a hand if we don't know that they're struggling. And if they need a hand, then they are not in a space of peace. Um, and that goes down to the person that's on the corner, the person that's in the middle of the block, the person that's on the other end of the block. As you walking by them with your headphones on, not looking at them, not seeing them as a person, um, they need a hand, and they're not living in peace. So it's really important to connect those things of understanding and knowledge and wisdom, and how to discern where you fit into these roles of change and revolution as we as humans evolve, um, so we don't lose out on what else this planet has to offer, because the environment is changing. And if the environment is changing, the only way that us as humans can survive it is by also evolving and changing. Otherwise, we won't make it.
Some humans would rather be virtually connected than connected face to face, connected in the more conventional sense.
You good? This is really connected to what we were talking about earlier about human connection and living in the Zoom world right now. We definitely need real connection at the end of the
Oh,
day.
yes.
And but this is a way to still stay connected. And Lyrical Ones, episode 7, we're doing it. You know what I mean? This is keeping the connectivity. You know what I'm saying? Good old 7. And I'm just throwing it up because time is of the essence. And this is a blessing. And seeing you guys is so refreshing. I got my brother Cineo. He break it down on the mic and the stereo with classic material. I just ate a bowl of cereal. I got my boy Alex Osborne. He was born to speak on microphones and stays on his own. Never been a clone. And I'm just chilling here at home. And shout out to Miss June Banks. This is an episode I would like to thank because my mind just went blank. I need some water to drink. And yeah, episode 7, you guys. I don't know what just happened. I just started rapping. Thank you. Episode. We're talking about, I said, a hip hop. Yo, man, take us home, Cineo.
Oh, you wanna take it home?
Last thoughts. Says.
Here we go.
Anyhow, it's just I called when I could. I'm sorry for blanking out. I mean, I had to eat something. I got home, so what time is it? Midnight? I mean, it's late, you guys, but I mean, I'm happy to be on the same call.
Yes. Yes.
No worries.